Studies have shown that 10 out of 10 people die. Welcome to Walking Through the Word for today. We're in John chapter 20. And when we left the end of John chapter 19, Jesus had been laid in the tomb on Friday. Now, the first day of the week, which for the record in the Jewish calendar is Sunday, while it was still dark, Mary Magdalene went to the tomb and saw that the stone had been removed from the entrance. Now, before we get into the too far into some of this, let's talk about. But the first day of the week, why do we talk about Jesus being dead for 3 days when he died on a Friday and he came back on a Sunday? By math, depending on any stretch of the math that you have, that's like what, 2 days? Well, you have to remember that in Jewish accounting and in Jewish reckoning, Jesus died on Friday. That's any part of the day on Friday counts as day 1. Okay? Saturday counts as day 2, and the fact that Jesus resurrected on day 3 is why we say 3 days later. Okay? So that's where this comes in. There's no having to go, well, maybe he didn't. No. This is just the accounting that's done in the Jewish culture. The first day of the week while it was still dark. Remember, the Passover is done. And so now it's time to go back to work, and Mary's going there to prepare to finish embalming Jesus. That's what she's there to do. They rushed in to get him in the tomb before the sun set so that they could honor the Jewish tradition of the Sabbath and the Passover. And now the job is being finished, but Mary didn't realize what job was actually being finished. Mary Magdalene went to the tomb. Some other accountings show that there were some other women with her, and saw that the stone had been removed from the entrance. Now, at this point, panic is ensuing in Mary. She is afraid. And some accountings, it talks about the soldiers being paralyzed, they being motionless or having run away. There's various accountings depending on the timing of when things happen. In John's accounting, the stone had been removed, and Mary has no idea what's going on. Someone has taken Jesus. We don't know why. We don't understand it. She probably even thinks that maybe the Jewish leaders took Jesus to take his body away so they couldn't finish what they needed to do. So in a panic, she comes running, finds the disciples, Simon Peter and the other disciple, the one Jesus loved. This is John, by the way. And said, "They have taken the Lord out of the tomb, and we don't know where they have put him." In other words, she's thinking instantly, someone has taken the body. Someone is going to desecrate the body. They're going to do something terrible to it. She's in horror. She's horrified at this. So Peter and the other disciples started for the tomb. They're running. I like how John throws this dig in at Peter, but the other disciple outran Peter and reached the tomb first. little razzing going on. He bent over and looked in at the strips of linen lying there, but did not go in. Then Simon Peter, in typical Simon Peter fashion, came along behind and went straight into the tomb. He saw the strips of linen lying there, as well as the cloth that had been wrapped around Jesus' head. The cloth was still lying in its place, separate from the linen. Finally, the other disciple who had reached the tomb first also went inside. John peeked his head inside. He was fearful. He's like, what am I going to find? He looked in and he was perplexed. He's like, he didn't know what to think, wasn't sure how to react to it. So Peter bulldozed his way in, as Peter's wont to do. Finally, John gathers the courage to go in, and when he did, it says at the end of verse 8, he saw and believed. And this is the important part. In verse 9, they still did not understand from Scripture that Jesus had to rise from the dead. Now, why did Jesus have to rise from the dead? Well, very simply, it's because everyone dies. We all die. That was the joke at the beginning of this video. But no one raises themselves from the dead, especially after 3 days. Now, we've heard of medical miracles of people that have been revived after long extended periods, maybe because of hypothermia and that kind of stuff. But 3 days? 2 nights in a tomb? No, not a chance. Some people say, well, Jesus was faking it. Really? He was faking it, and he managed to somehow not show when he was stabbed with the spear and all of the water and the blood came out, that he was faking it and he was able to not do anything. Why do you think they do that? They check to make sure. These soldiers have done crucifixion after crucifixion. They know, and they would have known if someone was faking. No. Jesus had to rise from the dead. Jesus had to do this because this was the only way to finally prove once and for all who Jesus is. Everyone dies. Only Jesus came back from the dead. Any other person that claimed to be the Messiah, any other person that would manage to somehow fulfill all of the other messianic prophecies, this one right here, couldn't fake. Can't make it up. You can't do anything but believe that Jesus is who he says he is after this occurred. The disciples still didn't fully understand what was going on. In verse 10, the disciples went back to where they were staying. They couldn't comprehend what was going on, not until later. But they're about to. Sure enough, Jesus is about to rock their world.